Hi there, and welcome to Lancashire. My name is Ged Melia. I'm an author, and I was a management consultant, but these days I tend to involve myself in book-related activities, buying, selling interesting and collectible books, and organising book fairs, and even writing them as well. My latest novel is called Liverpool. It's an 1840s set novel set in the city of the same name. It's kind of accidental in many ways, in that it's become the third of a series. Wasn't what I was set out to do, but it's ended up as a century-long generational saga, all based on family history. The story was inspired by events associated with my own ancestors' experiences of the time, but it is a work of fiction. I had maybe half a dozen facts to work with, so the challenge was to try and create a convincing narrative, a credible narrative to link those facts together. A second reason, I wouldn't call it an inspiration, but it's more of a motivation in many respects, was that my son and daughter were not overly interested in family history. And I thought, well, I was trying to work out how to perhaps encourage that interest, and I came up with the idea of novelising it. In other words, telling the story, but in an interesting way. And I believe from what my daughter said that I've achieved some success in that area. The story, in fact, all three of my novels are effectively generational stories. So naturally, if it's a family saga, in essence, the main characters are family members. I have adopted or inherited in many ways the Irish naming convention, so you do see the same names appearing through each of the books. I call it a generational saga, but with this particular one, Liverpool, a generation is typically 25 to 30 years, but in this instance, I'm afraid lives were far shorter, so 15 years is probably a fair description of a generation back in the 1840s. I've always enjoyed the process of writing. Even, believe it or not, some of the technical, drier managerial reports that I've had to get involved in the past. Believe it or not, it is possible to imbue a report of that nature with some creativity if you try hard enough. These days, I just enjoy the process of letting my imagination wander into a world far away from wherever I am. If you're an aspirational author, then I guess the main piece of advice I'd give is to just do it and finish it. I wouldn't, if I were you, try and stop halfway through or a third of the way through, stop at chapter 4 with the intention of getting back to it, because it is quite hard to pick up the threads. My challenge was really just getting to the end of it, and I'm pretty persistent, and what I wanted to do was just get the first draft ready and then perhaps return to it at a later date. But yeah, start it and finish it. Try and get to that first draft as fast as possible. There's lots of technical stuff that you pick up as you go along with respect to publishing, learning about print on demand and literary agents and traditional versus self-publishing and that kind of thing. But that's just the technical stuff. I think the real challenge is just to do it. Liverpool, along with my first two novels, Family Business and A Lancashire Story, it's available on all the usual suspects platforms: Amazon, Waterstones, Barnes & Noble, and across the world basically. It's a bit more challenging to find it in a bookshop, as most authors, smaller publisher authors, will be familiar with. A lot of the larger book chains, those that are still remaining, tend to have arrangements with the biggest publishers, and it's quite difficult to get, let's say, a lesser title like mine into the stores. Having said that, you can still manage to get it into some of the independent bookshops, and I will probably be having a chat with some of them, certainly in my area. Whether or not you could get hold of it in your part of the country is probably going to be more of a challenge, but you never know.